Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the stars. He commanded the largest space fleet in the galaxy. For 3,000 years, his people, the Zephyrians, had ruled over every planet and every species they found. No one had ever beaten them in battle. The admiral was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms. His uniform was covered in medals from countless victories. Behind him, dozens of alien officers worked at glowing control panels. The bridge was huge, almost the size of a football field. "Sir, we have a report from our scouts," said Commander Kyleth, his second in command. She handed him a data pad with shaking hands. Vextar read the report and started laughing. The sound echoed through the quiet bridge. 12 ships? Only 12? He laughed even harder. And they call themselves humans? The report said that a small fleet of unknown vessels had been spotted near the Kepler star system. The ships belonged to a species called humans, who came from a small blue planet called Earth. The Empire had only recently discovered these creatures during their expansion into that part of the galaxy. "Show me images of their ships," Vextar ordered. The main screen lit up with pictures of the human vessels. They looked tiny compared to Imperial warships. The human ships were made of simple metal and had basic designs. They looked like they were built in someone's garage, not in advanced space factories. "Pathetic," muttered Vextar. "Our smallest escort ship is bigger than their largest vessel." The Imperial fleet consisted of 200 warships. Each dreadnought was the size of a small moon, armed with weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. The flagship, Eternal Dominion, was so large that it had its own weather system inside the hangar bays. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the UES Liberty, the lead human ship. He was 42 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been fighting wars for most of his adult life, first on Earth and now among the stars. "Captain, we're getting multiple contacts on long-range sensors," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Ben Cooper. "Looks like a big fleet heading our way." Morrison nodded calmly. He had expected this. The human fleet had been sent to explore this region of space, but they knew they might run into the Zephyrian Empire. Earth's leaders had heard stories about these aliens and their huge empire. The human fleet was small but well-trained. Captain Lisa Martinez commanded the UES Defender, a fast attack ship built for hit-and-run tactics. Captain Paul Johnson led the UES Ranger, which carried the fleet's heaviest weapons. Captain Amy Davis was in charge of the UES Guardian, the fleet's shield specialist. Each human ship was much smaller than the alien vessels, but they had been designed by people who understood war. Earth had seen centuries of conflict between nations, and humans had learned to build weapons that actually worked in real battles. "Sir, incoming transmission from the alien fleet," announced Lieutenant Chris Parker, the communications officer. "Put it on screen," Morrison ordered. Admiral Vextar's image appeared on the main viewer. He looked down at the humans with obvious contempt. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. You are in Imperial space without permission. Surrender immediately or we will destroy you." Morrison stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, but he carried himself like someone who had seen real combat. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Fleet. We don't recognize your claim to this system. We're here on a peaceful exploration mission." Vextar's 4 eyes narrowed. "Peaceful? Your ships are clearly military vessels. You have exactly 5 minutes to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you refuse, we will demonstrate the power of the Empire." The transmission ended. Morrison looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all young, most of them in their 20s and 30s, but every one of them had been trained for this moment. "What are your orders, Captain?" asked Ben Cooper. Morrison sat back down in his chair. "Send a message to the other ships. Tell them to prepare for combat operations. And Chris, send a reply to the aliens." "What should I tell them, sir?" Morrison smiled grimly. "Tell them we respectfully decline their generous offer." On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Vextar received the human response with surprise. No species had ever refused Imperial demands before. Most aliens surrendered as soon as they saw the size of the empires. "Ships, sir, should we send the entire fleet?" asked Commander Kyleth. Vextar waved one of his hands dismissively. "No need. Send one dreadnought. The Eternal Dominion should be enough to handle 12 primitive ships. I want to see these humans beg for mercy." The massive warship began moving toward the human fleet. It was 3 kilometers long and armed with hundreds of energy cannons. Its shields could withstand the combined firepower of most planetary defense systems. Captain Morrison watched the enemy ship approach on his tactical display. "Ben, what do you think of their weapons?" "Big energy beams, sir. Designed to punch through heavy armor and shields. Classic Empire technology. And our ships? Built for speed and maneuverability. Our weapons are kinetic projectiles and focused plasma bursts. Different approach entirely." Morrison nodded. The humans had learned something important during their wars on Earth. The biggest weapon didn't always win. Sometimes the smartest weapon won. "All ships, this is Morrison. Prepare for engagement. Remember your training, and remember why we're out here. We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for every species that wants to be free from the Empire." The human fleet began to spread out into attack formation. 12 small ships against one massive dreadnought. To any observer, it looked like certain death for the humans. But Captain Morrison had read the intelligence reports about the Zephyrian Empire. They had been winning for so long that they had forgotten how to fight against an enemy who actually fought back. The humans were about to remind them. Commander Zilneth stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching the human ships through the main view screen. He was younger than Admiral Vextar, with bright purple skin and 3 eyes. He had won many battles for the Empire, but always against enemies who ran away quickly. "Sir, the human ships are moving," reported his weapons officer. "They're spreading out in some kind of pattern." Zilneth studied the tactical display. The 12 human vessels were moving in ways that seemed random. Some ships moved up, others moved down, and a few went sideways. It didn't look like any battle formation he had seen before. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching his fleet move into position. "Formation Delta is active, sir," reported Lieutenant Ben Cooper. "All ships are in position." Formation Delta was something the humans had learned during their wars on Earth. It looked messy and unorganized, but every ship had a specific job. Some ships would attack directly, while others would move around the enemy and hit from behind. "Sir, the alien ship is getting closer," said Chris Parker, the communications officer. "They're trying to contact us again." Morrison nodded. "Put them on screen." Commander Zilneth's image appeared. He looked angry and impatient. "Humans, this is your final warning. Surrender now or face the consequences. You cannot win against the power of the Empire." Morrison looked directly at the alien commander. "We gave you our answer already. We're not surrendering to anyone." Zilneth's 3 eyes glowed with rage. "Then you will learn what happens to those who defy the Empire." He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Fire a warning shot at their lead ship. Make it close enough to scare them." The Eternal Dominion's main cannon charged up with a loud humming sound. The weapon was massive, bigger than most human buildings. It could destroy a small moon with a single shot. "Firing now, sir," announced the weapons officer. A bright beam of energy shot out from the dreadnought, aimed directly at the UES Liberty. The beam was so powerful that it lit up the entire area of space around both fleets. On the Liberty, alarms started ringing immediately. "Incoming energy beam," shouted Ben Cooper. "All hands brace for impact." The beam hit the Liberty directly in the center. For a moment, the entire ship was surrounded by bright light. The crew was thrown around as the ship shook violently. Morrison picked himself up from the floor. "Damage report. Shields down to 60%, sir," reported the engineering officer, "but all systems are still working." Zilneth expected the human ship to be destroyed or badly damaged. Instead, he watched in surprise as the Liberty's shields held against his most powerful weapon. The human ship was still intact and still moving. "Impossible," he muttered. "That was enough power to destroy a city." What Zilneth didn't know was that human shields worked differently than Empire shields. The aliens used pure energy barriers, but humans mixed energy shields with physical armor plating. It was a design they had developed during Earth's space wars. Morrison stood up straight and looked at his crew. Everyone was ready for battle. "Ben, return fire. All weapons." "Yes, sir." Ben Cooper's fingers flew over his control panel, firing kinetic rounds and plasma bursts. The Liberty's weapons were completely different from anything the Empire had seen. Instead of energy beams, the humans used solid metal projectiles fired at incredible speeds. They also used concentrated plasma that could burn through almost any material. The first kinetic round hit the Eternal Dominion's forward shield. The solid metal slug was moving so fast that it punched right through the energy barrier like it wasn't even there. The projectile slammed into the dreadnought's hull with tremendous force. Zilneth felt his ship shake. "What was that? Report." "Sir, they hit us with some kind of solid projectile. It went right through our shields and damaged our forward armor." "That's impossible. Our shields stop everything." But the human attack was just beginning. Captain Lisa Martinez's ship, the UES Defender, fired its plasma cannons. The focused beams of super-hot gas hit the Dominion's side shields and started burning through them. Captain Paul Johnson's UES Ranger fired its main gun, which the humans called a rail cannon. It used magnetic fields to accelerate a metal projectile to nearly the speed of light. The round hit the Dominion so hard that it punched completely through the ship's armor and came out the other side. "Sir, we have hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, reported the damage control officer. "Emergency force fields are holding, but we're losing atmosphere." Zilneth couldn't believe what was happening. The Empire's most powerful warship was being damaged by tiny human vessels. How are they doing this? The answer was simple, but the Empire had forgotten it over centuries of easy victories. The humans had learned to fight during hundreds of years of war against each other. Every weapon they built had been tested in real combat. Every tactic they used had been proven in actual battles. The Zephyrians had been so powerful for so long that they had stopped improving their technology. They thought their energy weapons and shields were perfect because nobody had ever challenged them before. Captain Amy Davis's UES Guardian fired a spread of missiles at the dreadnought. The missiles were small and fast, designed to overwhelm enemy defenses by attacking from multiple directions at once. "Sir, multiple incoming projectiles," warned the Dominion's defensive systems officer. "I can't track them all." The missiles hit the big ship from 6 different angles. Each explosion was small, but together they caused serious damage to the Dominion's weapon systems and sensor arrays. Morrison watched the battle from his command chair. The plan was working perfectly. The human ships were too small and fast for the big alien ship to hit effectively, but their weapons were designed to punch through heavy armor and shields. "Sir, the alien ship is trying to retreat," reported Ben Cooper. Morrison shook his head. "Let them go, but send a message to their fleet commander." "What should I tell him, sir?" Morrison smiled grimly. "Tell Admiral Vextar that if he wants to fight us, he better bring more ships, a lot more ships." Commander Zilneth's ship limped away from the battle, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere. He immediately sent an emergency message to Admiral Vextar. "Sir, we need reinforcements immediately. The humans are much more dangerous than we thought." Admiral Vextar received Commander Zilneth's emergency message while he was eating dinner in his private quarters. He was enjoying a meal of roasted space slug when his communication device started beeping urgently. "Sir, urgent message from the Eternal Dominion," said his aide, a nervous young officer with green skin. Vextar read the message and his 4 eyes widened in shock. The humans had actually damaged one of the Empire's most powerful warships. This was impossible. No one had ever hurt an Imperial dreadnought before. "Prepare the entire fleet for immediate departure," Vextar ordered, standing up quickly. "All 200 ships. We're going to crush these humans once and for all." Within 2 hours, the massive Imperial fleet was moving toward the Kepler system. The force included 50 dreadnoughts, each one the size of a small city. There were 100 cruisers armed with enough weapons to destroy entire planets. 50 support ships carried supplies and additional fighters. It was the largest military force the Empire had ever assembled for a single battle. Captain Morrison stood in the medical bay of the UES Liberty, visiting crew members who had been injured during the first fight. The ship's doctor, Lieutenant Kate Rogers, was treating a young sailor who had been thrown against a wall when the alien energy beam hit their shields. "How are our people doing, Kate?" Morrison asked. "3 broken bones, some cuts and bruises, but everyone will be fine," she replied. "Your ship held together better than I expected." Morrison nodded. Human ships were built to take damage and keep fighting. During Earth's wars, they had learned that battles were won by the side that could keep fighting the longest, not necessarily the side with the biggest guns. "Captain Morrison to the bridge," came Chris Parker's voice over the ship's communication system. "We have multiple contacts on long-range sensors." Morrison hurried back to the command deck. Ben Cooper was studying the tactical display with a worried expression. "Sir, you need to see this. The aliens are bringing everything they have." The sensor screen showed 200 red dots moving toward their position. Each dot represented an enemy warship, most of them much larger than any human vessel. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Sarah Thompson, the navigation officer. "There are so many of them." Morrison looked at the display calmly. He had expected this. After the first battle, he knew the Empire would respond with overwhelming force. But he had a plan. "Chris, open a channel to all ships in the fleet," Morrison ordered. "Channel open, sir." Morrison spoke clearly and confidently. "This is Captain Morrison to all ships. As you can see, the Empire is bringing their full fleet against us. They think numbers will win this battle. They're wrong." He paused, looking around at his crew. Every face showed determination mixed with fear, but no one showed any sign of giving up. "We're going to split into 3 groups. Lisa, take your group and hit their left flank. Paul, you take your ships and circle around, behind them. Amy, your group will stay with me for a direct assault on their command ship." Captain Lisa Martinez's voice came over the communication channel. "Jake, are you sure about this? We're outnumbered 17-1. Morrison smiled grimly. "Lisa, remember what we learned during the Martian Wars. The bigger the enemy formation, the harder it is for them to coordinate. We're going to use their size against them." The human fleet began to separate into 3 smaller groups. To Admiral Vexstar, watching from his flagship, it looked like the humans were making a desperate attempt to scatter and run. "They're trying to escape," he told his bridge crew. "Don't let any of them get away. Surround them and destroy them all." What Vexstar didn't understand was that the humans weren't running. They were executing a battle plan called Wolves in the Fold, a tactic developed during Earth's colonial wars when small human forces had to fight much larger enemy armies. Captain Lisa Martinez led her 4 ships in a wide arc around the Imperial fleet's left side. Her group included fast attack vessels designed for hit-and-run tactics. They could strike quickly and disappear before the enemy could respond. "All ships, this is Martinez. Target their communication arrays and sensor systems. We want to blind them before the main attack begins." Her ships fired precision strikes at the Imperial vessel's most vulnerable points. Human weapons were designed to disable specific systems rather than just cause random damage. Captain Paul Johnson took his group of 4 ships around behind the Imperial fleet. His ships carried the heaviest weapons in the human fleet, including the rail cannons that had proven so effective against Imperial armor. "This is Johnson to all ships, remember. Aim for their engines and power systems. Dead ships can't fight back." His group began attacking the rear of the Imperial formation. The big alien ships had powerful weapons, but most of them pointed forward. They weren't designed to fight enemies attacking from behind. Morrison led his remaining 4 ships directly toward Admiral Vexstar's flagship. It was the most dangerous part of the plan, but someone had to keep the Imperial commander's attention focused on the wrong place. "Sir, the human ships are attacking from 3 directions at once," reported Commander Kyleth on the Imperial flagship. "Our formation is breaking apart." Admiral Vexstar watched in growing alarm as his carefully organized fleet began to fall into chaos. The humans were attacking his ships faster than his commanders could respond. "Order all ships to focus fire on the group attacking us directly," Vexstar commanded. But that was exactly what Morrison had hoped for. While the Imperial ships were focusing on his small group, Lisa Martinez and Paul Johnson's forces were systematically destroying the Empire's ability to coordinate their attacks. Captain Amy Davis, flying alongside Morrison, used her ship's special defensive systems to protect the other human vessels. The UES Guardian could project shield energy around nearby ships, making the entire group harder to destroy. "Jake, we're taking heavy fire," she reported. "I don't know how long our shields will hold." "Just a little longer, Amy." Lisa and Paul are almost in position for the final phase. The battle was going exactly as Morrison had planned. The Imperial fleet was so large that when the human attacks disrupted their communication systems, the alien commanders couldn't coordinate their response. Individual Imperial ships began fighting on their own, without support from their neighbors. This was exactly what human tactics were designed to exploit. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than I can count," reported Commander Kyleth to Admiral Vextar. "The humans are somehow coordinating their attacks perfectly while we can't even talk. To half our fleet." Vextar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His massive fleet was being torn apart by 12 tiny human ships. 6 hours after the battle began, Admiral Vextar stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by broken equipment and wounded crew members. Most of his fleet was gone. Destroyed ships floated in space like broken toys, their hulls torn open by human weapons. "Sir, we have 37 ships left," reported Commander Kyleth, blood running down her purple face from a head wound. "Most of them are badly damaged and trying to retreat." Vextar looked at the tactical display in shock. His mighty fleet of 200 warships had been reduced to scattered survivors in just 6 hours. The humans still had all 12 of their ships, though some showed battle damage. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "We had every advantage. Numbers, firepower, armor, shields. How did 12 tiny ships destroy the greatest fleet in galactic history?" The answer was simple, but painful for someone who had never lost a battle before. The humans had something the Empire had forgotten during 3,000 years of easy victories. They knew how to fight a real war. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the Imperial ships retreat. His uniform was torn and dirty, and he had a bandage on his left arm, but he was smiling. "Sir, should we pursue the surviving enemy ships?" asked Lieutenant Ben Cooper. Morrison shook his head. "No, let them go. We've made our point." "What point is that, sir?" asked Lieutenant Chris Parker. "That humanity doesn't bow down to anyone," Morrison replied firmly. "And that bullies always regret picking on someone who fights back." Admiral Vextar's flagship was one of the few Imperial ships still capable of long-range communication. With shaking hands, he opened a channel to the human fleet commander. Captain Morrison's image appeared on the main screen. The human looked tired, but determined. Behind him, his bridge crew continued working at their stations, calm and professional, despite having just fought impossible odds. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien commander said, his voice much quieter than before. I wish to discuss terms." Morrison studied the defeated alien carefully. "What kind of terms?" "Surrender terms," Vextar said, the words painful to speak. "The Empire formally surrenders this system to humanity. We will not attack human ships or colonies again." Morrison was quiet for a moment, then he smiled slightly. "Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but I think you misunderstand the situation." Vextar's 4 eyes showed confusion. "I don't understand." "You think this was our full strength?" Morrison explained. "You think 12 ships represent humanity's entire space fleet?" The alien admiral felt a cold fear growing in his chest. "Are you saying—" "Admiral, let me tell you something about humans," Morrison continued. "We've been preparing for this day for a long time. The day we met other species among the stars. We hoped they would be friendly, but we prepared for them to be hostile." Morrison paused, letting his words sink in. "This fleet represents less than 1% of humanity's space navy. We have over 40 colonies scattered across this part of the galaxy, each one defended by ships like these." Vextar's face went pale. 40 colonies? But our scouts never found— "Your scouts weren't looking in the right places," Morrison said calmly. "We've been very careful to stay hidden while we explored and expanded, until today." The truth hit Admiral Vextar like a physical blow. The Empire hadn't just lost a battle, they had accidentally started a war with a species that was already stronger than they were. "But why didn't you reveal yourselves before?" Vextar asked desperately. "We could have negotiated, made treaties." Morrison's expression grew serious. "Admiral, every species we've encountered has told us the same story. The Empire shows up, demands surrender, and destroys anyone who refuses. We decided to be ready when you found us." On Earth, in the capital, city of Geneva, President Robert Hayes received Morrison's battle report with mixed feelings. He was proud of the victory, but worried about what would come next. "Madam Secretary," he said to his defense minister, Linda Walsh, "how many more fleets can we deploy if the Empire counterattacks?" "We have 50 battle groups ready for immediate deployment," she replied. "Each one is stronger than Morrison's fleet, and we can build more ships faster than the Empire can, thanks to our automated shipyards." The president nodded. Humanity had learned important lessons from their history on Earth. The best way to preserve peace was to be so strong that no one wanted to fight you. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, news of the Empire's defeat spread quickly. Species that had been conquered centuries ago began to whisper about rebellion. If humans could defeat the mighty Imperial fleet, maybe freedom was possible after all. Captain Morrison sent one final message to Admiral Vextar before the Imperial survivors jumped to hyperspace. "Admiral, I want you to take a message back to your Emperor." "What message?" Vextar asked. "Tell him that humanity offers peace to all species that want it," Morrison said. "We don't want to conquer anyone or build an empire. We just want to be left alone to explore the stars. But if anyone threatens human colonies or human ships, they'll face the same fate as your fleet today." Morrison paused, then added, "And tell him that we know about the other species in your empire, the ones you've conquered and enslaved. If they want freedom, humanity will help them get it." 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council held an emergency meeting on the neutral world of Sanctuary. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss the new situation. The Empire's delegate, a nervous Zephyrian diplomat named Kextal, stood before the assembly. "The Empire formally recognizes humanity as a sovereign species," he announced. "We withdraw all claims to human territory and agree to peaceful coexistence." But it was too late for simple peace treaties. The news of the Empire's defeat had inspired revolts on dozens of worlds. Species that had been slaves for centuries were fighting for their freedom, and many of them were asking for human help. Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral, met with rebel leaders from across the galaxy. In a speech that would be remembered, "For generations," he said, "humanity learned long ago that freedom is not something you can give to someone else. It's something each person, each species must win for themselves. But we will stand with anyone who chooses to fight for their liberty." The age of the Zephyrian Empire was ending. The age of galactic freedom, protected by human ships and human determination, was just beginning. And Admiral Vextar, sitting in his damaged flagship as it limped back to the Imperial capital, understood that his people had made the worst mistake in their 3,000-year history. They had picked a fight with humanity, and now the entire galaxy would never be the same.